Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Industry Live. I am Alfonso Espinosa. I am your host for today. I am the host of Thoughts from the Midlife podcast, and we are on our topics today, following up on additional options for mental health and opportunities to find help in the community here in the El Paso, Texas area and Texas statewide. We are continuing the series on sensitive assumptions, and today we'll be talking to our guest, Mr. Rudy Salazar from Advanced Case Management Services. Welcome, Rudy.
Good afternoon.
Everyone, this is Rudy Salazar. Rudy Salazar is the CEO of Advanced Case Management Services. As you'll come to learn through our conversation today, you will see that Rudy is a man of many facets. Rudy and I have known each other for close to 20 years. We are good friends and someone whom I trust and someone whom I have very, very high esteem for. Today, Rudy's going to walk us through his journey in how he established Advanced Case Management Services here in El Paso, Texas, and why he decided to come into that field, and also give us a little bit of background for himself. So, Rudy, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can step into your CEO world.
First of all, thank you for having me on. Again, my name is Rudy Salazar. I'm the CEO and Director of Case Management Services for Advanced Case Management Services. It all started back when I started working as a tech at UBH. I was an activities coordinator / mental health tech. I ended up over there after, I've worked different jobs throughout my life, starting from even before high school. And then, some of the jobs that I had that led me to this, one of them was working with a police department out in New Mexico. And then afterwards with a fire department, and you get to see a lot of things. You get to see a lot of things where it makes you wonder, why do some people do, some of the things that you witness, especially when it comes down to suicides, whether they went through, attempted, or they made it, and you get to see the different situations, why, and it's usually they didn't have anyone that was there for them. Or sometimes people do have a support system, but they still fall into such a deep depression that they just end up taking that other path. Now, after working for a while, with several with a couple of mental health facilities, I got to see another pattern where it was just related to medication, the psych meds. There's a lot of people who are dealing with depression and anxiety. Those two always seem to come in a pair. Then, of course, you have your schizophrenia, bipolar, and of course PTSD. But depression and anxiety, everyone goes through it at a certain level. But that's not fixed right away with just medication, which is what some of the same thing that I saw over and over. You could be dealing with, the usual stress from the week, either from work or from, that's related with a family or whatever. And it starts to become, if you don't have outlets to deal with that, it's gonna catch up. So you're gonna end up feeling those symptoms. And the more you leave it unattended, the more they start piling up. So then you're gonna start noticing things like, you have a hard time going to sleep. You start losing appetite, or there's an increase in appetite, and because you don't have outlets. Now you go to a clinic and you would address these issues with whoever's in charge there, and then first thing is, okay, here's the medication. Take this once, twice a day for this long. Come back in in a month, come back in 2 weeks, depending on their level of care. But they're not really giving them options outside of the medication. Okay, how can we deal with this depression? How can we deal with this anxiety? And it is very often overlooked that, a lot of us deal with stress every day. You get up, kids going to school, you go get ready to go to work, going through traffic, whatever the case is, and it becomes a pattern. So you're working, depending on your schedule, you deal with that thing the whole week. So at the end of the day, what is it that you do, time for yourself to de-stress yourself from all of the daily events, from that stress? But a lot of people don't do that. They just come back home, they're tired, they're already stressed out, they just want to have dinner, take a shower, and go to bed.
Right.
Next day, repeat. So you stop looking at things like, for example, exercising, taking time, an hour for yourself. Another thing that I've seen, that I've heard from a lot of patients, is that they feel guilty. They think that taking half an hour for themselves a day, they feel that they're being selfish. Oh, I can't do that because I have to, my kids and my husband or my wife or whoever they have to deal with at home. They keep attending to everyone else but themselves. Now we are taught from an early age that we always put our family first, our kids, we put them first, and we put ourselves last. But in reality, we have to put ourselves first. It's not being selfish. We have to put ourselves first, because if we end up going down, then what about everything else that we're in charge of, that we're taking care of? It trickles down like a domino effect. It affects everyone down the line. So you have to look after yourself first in order to be able to take care of everyone else afterwards.
That's a really good point. And growing up in a border town and living in a Hispanic, mostly Mexican American culture, I think part of that is tied to that as well. But do you find in your business and in your dealings with different clients, is it different for different cultures, or do you find the pattern to be the same for all the different cultures that you deal with?
You know what? Actually, there is a difference, and when it comes to cultures, there are a lot of differences. Mm-hmm. Because there are some cultures that they don't want to deal with it. They turn a blind eye to it. Oh no, the signs of schizophrenia are there. Oh no, they're just stressed out. Don't bother them.
Or they're going through a tough time.
Yeah, or they cast them out. A lot of families will cast them out. No, no está bien, no le invitan a las fiestas because they're somewhere out there.
Yeah.
And it's a stigma.
It's a stigma.
Yet there's other cultures.
I was going to say that when I first had some therapy to learn and try to understand some things better, I had a conversation with my mom, and my mom was an old school Mexican lady, and when I told her, "Hey, mom, I'm gonna see a counselor," and she told me in Spanish, "Que no tienes los cajones para, don't you have the guts to handle this on your own?" And I told her, "Mom, it isn't about that." I said, "I think it takes a lot of guts to go and to seek help and admit that you're vulnerable and that you're not Superman, you're not Superwoman, and that you can't deal with everything." Is that something that you see as well?
That we see that that is very common. It's very common. But then there's people that they finally say, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to take that step to go to a clinic and get the help that I need." But here's the other thing. Here's another part of the stigma that kicks in. There are people that they're very aware that they need help, that they need to go to a clinic for mental health services.
Right.
But then once they're like, "Okay, I'm going to go," but what stops them is like, "Okay, what if I go to any of the clinics, and I end up running into someone that I know.
Right.
And there's always the what ifs. What if, they see me there, or they see me walking out from the parking lot, they're gonna, hey, well, what are you doing here? Well, I came to therapy. They relate going to therapy to just that you're not all there.
Yeah. So some shame. They put some shame to it, right?
Right. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, there's a lot of people, they need the help, and not necessarily because they're diagnosed with, being bipolar or anything like that. It's just a lot of people, they just need to vent.
Right.
And they can't vent to just anyone. They might have it's kind of like a conflict of interest, where if you're at home, you can't, certain things you can't, you're not comfortable to talk with your significant other, or your kids, or your parents, your relatives, or even some friends, because again, there's always that possibility of, what if I tell my friend, what if I talk to him about this, or what if I talk to my sister about this, and then they go out and they tell someone else.
Right. Or sometimes the person that you feel most inclined to talk to may be part of, or they may be the problem, right? And
yes,
and they don't know how to take that feedback or how to handle that. When I did go to therapy, which I'm a big advocate for it, because I've always considered myself to be a person who is well adjusted and copes with situations, but sometimes you're faced with stuff that you just don't know how to handle, right? And what I found comforting was talking to a professional who didn't know anything about me. They didn't have any preconceived ideas about me. They didn't have any judgment about what I was talking about. And the way I thought about it was, this person has probably talked about this topic many other times with other people, and has probably dealt with things far more serious than what I'm talking about. And so I think that establishing that, creating that awareness, and trying to normalize that you can talk to someone about stuff can be part of an everyday routine. I remember going back, occasionally, and my counselor telling me, it's kind of like a tune-up. And it's kind of like going to the chiropractor and getting an adjustment, or taking your car in to get the wheels rotated or aligned and stuff like that. And if we look at it like that, like one of the mundane things that go on in the world, I think we can help people find more help, right?
And you actually laid it up pretty well. That's the way it is. It's like a tune-up. It's because you're getting a different perspective from someone outside of your usual,
right,
circle, where, because sometimes even we don't want to accept certain things. We
right.
know that they're there, but we just don't want to accept them. And we might have someone that's very close to us tell us, hey, you know what? We've been noticing these things with you, or you get angry right away. What's going on? And you're like this. I don't want to hear it. No, nothing's wrong with me. But when you hear this from someone outside, like you said, someone that has no clue about you, that's not going to judge you, has no idea about you, and they notice these certain things,
right?
Your posture, your the way you talk, your expressions, your
body language, all of it.
Body language, and then they start identifying certain things. Hey, you know what? I notice, that you're, and they start putting it down for you. Right. That's when you realize, okay, you know what? You can't lie to yourself.
Right.
Someone can ask you, hey, how are you doing today? And you can look at them straight in the eye and say, oh, I feel great. I'm fine. But deep inside, that there's a list of things that are not going well at all.
Do you find that when people don't talk about things, or they can take something that may be even a small thing, and it can grow and grow and grow, the old adage of making a mountain out of a molehill, if they had just maybe addressed it early on?
Exactly. And you have to look at all of these things you have to be very honest with you. That's a big part of therapy, when it's not just the outside source that's going to be helping you, redirect all of these symptoms, but you also have to help yourself.
Right.
you know, therapist, psychotherapist, whoever you're going to see, they're going to give you the tools for you to use. You know what? Okay, you've been dealing with anxiety and for this long. Okay, they have to go back to the root of the problem. Okay, what is triggering this anxiety?
Right.
Oh, well, how is your, your usual, what is your normal schedule, throughout the
The
day?
routine. Yeah.
Your routine. What's your routine? And then once they start telling you, the therapist or the person that they're seeing, they're writing down a treatment plan. So they're looking at, oh, okay, look, here's the glitch, here's this. Okay, now if there's any way to avoid some of these triggers and replacing them with things that are going to benefit you. And again, some of those things are the outlets that I was talking about, where you have to take some me time throughout the day and say, okay, you know what? This is what I'm going to do, but this is something that I want to do, that I enjoy.
Right.
Like I tell all of my clients, I will never tell you what you have to do. Oh no, you have to start doing this, or you have to start. No, I will give them suggestions, but according to what I see that's wrong.
Right. What may work for them.
So that's when we start talking about interests. So let's say you're my client and you've been dealing with depression and anxiety for the past 3 months, and you don't know what's going on, and it's already affecting you to the point to where no one at home or your wants to talk to you, or your coworkers are avoiding you. Okay, so what's going on? Oh, well, this. All right. Let's put all of those things to the side. Let's talk about you. What is it that you like? What are your interests?
Mm-hmm.
I've had clients that have told me, you know what? No one's ever bothered asking me that.
Yeah.
So we take it from there. All right, let's see what do you like? Okay, like you, Alfonso, you start telling me, oh well, I like music, I like karaoke. So right away, I hook onto the music side. Oh really? So what's your favorite genre? Oh well, I like the 80s. I like this type of music. Well, when you go to karaoke, what do you usually like to sing to? Oh well, this song. And then we'll start discussing about, oh yeah, that's particular band that year where the song was released and whatever was going on in that year. So you see, that redirects that whole mentality of what was depressing or causing that client anxiety into something that they actually enjoy. And as the session goes on later, it's like, hey, you know what? I feel better now because we were talking about things of my interest.
Right.
And again, because I've had clients that have told me no one's ever bothered asking me what I want, what I like. It's always, they just shut them out.
It's always what everyone else needs, and them focusing on that. Do you find that a lot of maybe younger parents have a harder time with that, or is it parents in general that do that? I mean, I know individuals do as well. I'm not saying it's only us parents that our kids drive us nuts, really. But I'm saying, you'd be inclined to think that they're really focused on their children and their needs. But is there a difference in folks that have little kids versus kids that are in maybe their teenage years? Some of the challenges that they face.
You know what? Right now, what I've been having a lot are, well, like the really the young kids, the adolescents. What hit them hard was COVID.
Right.
And it's not because they got COVID. It's that whole 2-year period where they literally from one day to the next just ended up at home and sitting in front of a laptop and taking the classes from there.
Right.
That really affected them. That's why if to all of the parents that are listening to this, if they see that pattern at home where the kids no longer like to go out with them, they just want to be home all the time. You ask them, hey, let's go shopping, let's go buy groceries, whatever. Nah, it's okay, I'll stay home. They just want to be home.
Right.
What happened, Alfonso, is think about it. kids, like for example, in elementary school, they're used to that pattern of, during the school year, they get up, they get ready, they get dropped off at school, they go to the different classes, they're share the day with their classmates, they go to PE, they go to lunch,
Right.
and then after school, okay, parents or whoever picks them up. They went from that to all of a sudden they're at home sitting again in front of a laptop, taking their classes from there the whole day, just sitting there. That's something that adults do, where working from 9 to 5 at an office, sitting in front of a computer, and that's even frustrating.
Yeah, they weren't socializing, they weren't sharing, they weren't learning different styles of people. And as it is, they communicate a lot through text instead of this way, right? And that even went away.
And now even more kids prefer to chat with their friends or stuff, and on the screen.
Right.
They have every time I see that, it reminds me of the Brady Bunch, where they have all of the screens, and that's how they prefer to interact.
Right.
Versus, hey, you know what? Let's meet outside at the park and go play. Like, back in the day, that's almost pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, I tell my girls, my two daughters, I say, I don't think kids have scars anymore from falling down and scraping themselves or breaking their arm because they were up a tree and stuff like that. And this only compounded that. It only compounded it in that a lot of those things were taken away. You just couldn't do that stuff. And I think it's something that adults have dealt with too, because they pull away. Now being in the HR industry and talent acquisition and retention, you find that a lot of people will only come to work for your company if you offer them the opportunity to work from home. They don't want to come into work anymore. And I know some of it is that it's more comfortable to them. It's a little easier to not have to get up and get ready and all of that. But there's value in that, getting up, brushing your teeth, and combing your hair and getting dressed and stuff, versus just rolling out of bed and going to do that. So I imagine that the pandemic had an impact on not just school age kids, but everybody, because it's something that I've seen.
Even you're noticing that, and that's true.
Sure.
A lot of people, they prefer to work from home.
And they get angry when they say, well, can I work from home? I say, well, we prefer for you to be on site and come and work. And they're like, well, no, I'm not interested in working for you. So, we miss out on good people. They miss out on good opportunities to do that. So I want to take a minute just to ask anyone who is watching, please, if you have any questions or comments, please come onto the comment section and let us know if you have any questions whatsoever. Again, I'm Alfonso Espinosa with Thoughts from the Midlife, and I'm talking with Rudy Salazar, the CEO of Advanced Case Management today. So, Rudy, we've talked at length about the services, or rather some of the impacts and results of the societal roles that have happened, the way that they've impacted. Tell us a little bit about some of the services that you provide and how people can reach you for assistance.
Well, first of all, the office is located at 6044 Gateway Boulevard East. It's Suite 444. It's a fourth floor of the PNC Bank building. It's south of the I-10 from Bassett Center.
Right.
The phone number there. The phone number is 915-888-7908.
Do you have a web page that they can reach you by, or you prefer phone?
It's through the phone. I have a page on an office page on Facebook, and I can also be reached through there, because it breaks down all of the services that are being provided. And then, of course, I always put up different posts, of positive quotes and things to help people, something that'll help everyone at least somehow throughout the day, throughout the week. Inspirational, quotes.
Yeah, I've looked at your page, and there's a lot of very uplifting material. And sometimes people think, oh, what can reading something do for me in such a short time? But it's true. Sometimes I always tell people, words have power, and depending on how we use them, that will demonstrate what power that is. The title of today's, or the thumbnail today, was the Renaissance man talks on how he built his own mental health firm. I want to touch a little bit about the Renaissance piece. And I know you're a humble guy. I've never known you to have any even inkling of arrogance, but if you'll allow me to brag on you a little bit, Rudy's one of the most talented people I know. Rudy's an accomplished martial artist. Rudy is an accomplished tattoo artist. Some of his work is visible on me, and some of it probably on himself. Rudy is a fine singer. He's a really, really good singer. It's funny you talked about karaoke. It's one of the first times I met you. You were singing really well. And also, I know that you have a saying, a Buddhist saying that you often recite. Can you tell us a little bit about all of those things and how they have helped tie into what you do now?
Well, it's a chant. It's called Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So you chant to what's called the Gohonzon. It's a scroll. And what you're actually doing is that as you're chanting, it's a Buddhist prayer. It's pretty much the same as if you've heard of the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've read a book called The Secret. It talks about the law of attraction. What you think is what you attract. Right. People often confuse Buddhism with that's a religion and you're worshiping a different God. It's not that way. I mean, I was born and raised Catholic. Buddhism it's an extension. This is the way I see it. It's an extension of yourself.
Right.
So as you're chanting, you're thinking, you're focusing on your goals. You're focusing on, okay, this is what I need to do next. Or sometimes you might have some obstacles. You might be having some problems, and you focus on, how can I overcome this obstacle? Instead of working yourself up and again, ending up with the anxiety, with panic attacks, wondering, how am I? You get overwhelmed when you encounter, obstacles. So what you're actually doing as you're chanting, you're in your head, and sometimes it kind of sounds silly, but you see yourself hurtling through breaking through those obstacles, whatever they are, 1, 5, 20 of them, that you're just breaking through them. And I am going to make it to that side. You remove words from your vocabulary, like, probably, maybe. I'm gonna. I am going to do this. It will happen. Even though you see it far-fetched, or that there's multiple obstacles in between you and that goal. I am gonna make it to that. I am going to, because believe me, I could sit here for the next couple of days and giving you example after example of different things that I had to go through myself to get to this point. It wasn't easy. It was not easy. It's once you start going on a roll, here comes something that just boom takes you off to the side. And then you pick yourself up again and you keep rolling. All right, here we go. Now you're getting back to that pace again. And now here comes two things that like smash you from both sides. You go down, but the thing is you get back up. You don't sit there and, what am I going to do? And who's going to come and help me? And you know what? No one's going to come save you. No one. I've learned that time and time again. You have to get up and keep moving and keep moving, because at the end of the day, you don't have anyone but yourself. And
I take that, and I really am a big believer in the power of positive thinking as well. I tell people, we have control over only our thoughts and our actions, right? And our reactions to things. And so if you choose positivity, you can choose having a positive attitude, because there are people that can take a beautiful gift, and because they don't believe that they deserve it, or they haven't thought about it enough to really allow it to manifest. They can really turn that. And so I'm a big believer in positive thinking. I'm not saying it's akin to that, but it's very, very similar to, you know, the law of attraction of what you put out into the universe is what you take in, right? But I think that what you're saying about you really only have yourself to lean on, and you're really the only person who can save yourself, right? I tell people, when you're talking about another person and say, "Oh, that person makes me happy," I tell them, "Well, they don't make you happy. You make you happy, and but that
Yes.
person can contribute to your happiness, right? They can grow your happiness because they make your life easier or better. You know, I always say that about my wife, that she's a person who has come into my life to really make my life easier, right? And while she doesn't make me happy, she definitely contributes to it. And I would really wish for folks that they would embrace that and understand that, because then I think it puts a lot of pressure on the other person to feel like they're responsible for making you happy, you know?
Right. I've seen situations where the client has a very good support system. I mean, very good support system, but they're still not happy.
Right.
So you can have all these contributors, but at the end, it has to come from you.
From you.
That's where, when it goes to the Buddhism part, where are you familiar with a lotus flower?
I am.
Okay, it's a very beautiful flower. It's, I mean, the colors, the shape,
The texture.
but do you know where that flower grows?
No.
It grows in the dirtiest, murkiest environment. That's where it grows the best. In pretty much in filth, but that's where it grows the best. So what Buddhism teaches you is that, like the lotus flower, even though your environment can be of that nature, it doesn't mean that you have to adapt to it that way.
Become
The
that.
lotus flower still blooms, it still grows the way it is, despite of its environment.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I've seen people use that as a crutch. Oh, you know what? It's because I was raised, my parents were abusive, and I grew up in the hood, and the hard times, and that's why I'm the way I am. No, that's an excuse. You can change that. I grew up in the projects. And between gangs and everything negative that you can think of, that I could have gone off the rail badly, but I never adapted to that environment. First, well, thank God, I have always had both my parents. They always kept me in check, and it was always pushed in a school. You need to finish your school. You need to finish school. Finished high school, went to college on a Pell Grant, and then just took off from there.
Right.
But I never adapted to that environment just because I lived there.
Yeah. You never let it suck you in.
Right. And I've had a lot of people that, oh no, it's because that's where I'm from, and that's, no one's going to take that from me. That's why that's why I react, violently, or no, you can change that.
Yeah.
So someone with that mentality, you have to start, it steps at a time. Hey, you know what? Okay, let's start working on this. A lot of it is consequences for their actions. Hey, you keep behaving like this is where you can end up.
Right.
And I give them examples of, I don't tell them exactly who, but people that that I grew up with, and tell them, hey, look, you want to continue that path, this is what can happen to you. Let me tell you a story about this person that I knew, and this is how they ended up. So especially the teens that I see, that they, nowadays they think they watch one too many rap videos and probably Scarface.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, and play Grand Theft Auto, and they think that that's life, and that's they want to emulate that. But
I'm a big believer in Mike Tyson's saying, everybody's got a plan till you get punched in the mouth.
Right.
Right.
But no, it's the other way around. You have to ignore all of that. You have to keep yourself in the middle at all times. It's a balance. It's a balance.
You gotta work hard to be the lotus flower, and not the sludge around you, right?
Right.
So Rudy,
And
just to recap, we talked a lot about the creating mental health awareness, and I'm very happy that you were able to come on and talk about advanced case management and your experiences and how you've gotten there. I think it's a fine example for anyone who knows you and people that don't know you about how you can grow in your community and lean towards helping other people, and how beneficial that is. And it's a great story knowing how you've taken all of these great gifts and also the challenges that you've faced and been able to rise to the position that you're in. And I neglected to say that in addition to all of these things that are all wonderful accomplishments, you're a great dad. You're a wonderful father who's always there for your kids. And I've seen your kids grow from little babies to now adolescents and teenagers. Your little Kimchi's about to be 13, and Binky's he's already 15, and the
right.
boys are off on their own doing their thing. And those are all a beautiful reflection of who you are. So I
No,
really
thank
want to
you.
thank you for coming on.
Thank you. And I, coming from you, I really appreciate those words. I really appreciate it. Like I
Well,
said, it's like I said, earlier, it's a balance. It's a, being a parent is something that's also, to a lot of people, a lot of the young parents, it's very stressful because they still need some growing up themselves.
Yeah.
And they become parents very young, and then they don't know how to deal with a kid. So what do? Go take them to their parents or someone else to handle them, or
Or
even
pop them in front
sometimes,
of an iPad.
yeah, or sometimes I have some parents that, you know kind of, hey, something's going on, and then they'll tell me, hey, I don't know how to deal with him or her anymore. Like, well, you're at home. What do you mean you don't know how to deal with them?
Right.
And another thing I want to point out is I get a lot of cases where from CPS, for example, there's children, okay, they're going through whatever. There's a lot of parents that are also aware that their children need help in the mental health side, but they procrastinate because the fear of, oh, you know what, when we take them, they want to medicate them.
Yeah.
And they end up not taking them to any services, and then continue to deal with the issue, but because they're afraid that they're going to automatically medicate their kids. That is very common. And one thing I want to let the public know, I do not push on the medications. I don't make it mandatory. Oh, you have to take them. That's I always look for every option possible to avoid even having to go into the medication. And
That's great to hear.
I mean, and I have a nurse practitioner and an LPC that, for whatever reason, we have to go that route. Okay, then, let's do it. But I will give you every option possible, especially with the kids. Again, a lot of them that have told me, you know what? They call me Rudy, they call me Mister. No one's even asked me, about that. What do I want to do? What do I want? Because it's always, yeah, because they're having issues with them, and it's, hey, you better do this, you better do that, and they're not giving them any option other than that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure those are really challenging times, but I'm really glad that the approach that you're taking is to look for every option first, because we know we're in a very pharma-centered society, and everything is take a pill for it, right? And
Yes.
a lot of people don't want to look at the root of the issue and address it because it makes us uncomfortable. But I think that's the way to go. And definitely hearing that coming from a professional only reassures me that that's the way to go. And I'm glad that you're able to express that, and for folks to see and get some insight into who the founder of your business is and what the values are and what your approach is. So I want to thank you a lot for coming on and being so open. I'm sure we could talk for days, and if you're open to it, we can do this again sometime and talk a little bit more. But again, signing off today, This is Rudy Salazar of Advanced Case Management. Please check him on Facebook. He gave us your number. Would you repeat your phone number, please, Rudy?
Of course, it's